All right, hello everybody. I want to welcome you to the latest in the Pathworking classes. We're going to talk about the path of Tzaddi today, which is probably one of the more beatific and pleasant paths in the lower part of the tree. And from here we're going to be moving into a little bit more challenging territory for a little while. This is a place to enjoy some rest and refreshment as we move into areas where we're moving beyond the personality level into the more higher consciousness area. So, and that takes some challenges to move into that territory. So, to begin with, I want to open the floor to discussion of the path of Kuf from last time we met, people's experiences with it, and any questions that people have about their experiences or trouble that they were having with it. And I recall, Robin, that you sent me some questions actually 2 sessions ago, but you didn't actually make it to the either of the times. So I don't think I answered your questions because you weren't there. So if you want to just ask those questions now, I'd be happy to answer them. Alex is saying that Kuf was the single most powerful path done so far. I agree. It is a powerful path. It does have a lot of material that you're unearthing from it, and Kuf and Tzaddi are closely related in a similar way to the way that Resh and Shin were related to one another. In that Kuf, you're dealing with some projections and things inside of yourself that you're putting into the world, and in Tzaddi you are releasing your ego boundaries and allowing yourself to just expand. They're an interesting pair that's definitely very powerful and moving. Alex, everyone just go ahead and throw questions or comments at us. Don't worry about it. I'll answer them as they come in, so not to worry. Alex is saying that he does have a question, but we'll let Robin go first. I'm wondering how many people felt like they unearthed some material in the path of Kuf that they weren't expecting to unearth, or that they found uncomfortable or troubling to themselves. I certainly know that there's a lot of matters that, for me, it's kind of your first encounter with some shadow material in which you're realizing that there are things that you're putting out into the world that are actually creating some of your experiences that you're having of the world. Brendine says definitely eye-opening. Juan says, Kuf allowed me to make peace with a good many inner demons. Yes. Brendusa says, I grew incredibly regarding passing ego's boundaries. And so, I mean, in moving forward, really, we're from the path of Tzaddi beyond that point, we're really, and the path of Pei as well. Those are basically about letting go of the ego boundaries, more or less completely as much as possible. So it's definitely an interesting journey from this point forward. Alex said, somewhat embarrassing to say, but especially with my wife, I was shocked by how much stuff I put on her that's really me. Yeah, I mean, I encountered, not in the session itself, but in my life since I was doing the path with you, that there are still plenty of things that I project onto people, and areas in which I, realized, I'm creating this scenario in my own mind here. So, I mean, we're all vulnerable to projection at all points, and it's just good to become aware of it and look at that stuff. Brendine says, I found that many things I projected and created also all from within myself. Robin says, Cuff was both unsettling and yet quite interesting outwardly. Outwardly, things were going great, yet internally things were surfacing and causing discomfort. Do you want to expand on that, Robin? And also, Robin, you had several questions. I could go into my email and track them down, but I saw that you signed up, so I was hoping you were going to be here just to ask them. Alex says, I feel like $1 million after doing cough, but I wish there was a way to make that last longer. Quite disorienting inwardly. Graham says the 29th and 31st seem to relate to the past, while the 30th and 28th to the, I think, the 29th and 28th to the future, collective, not just personal. Robin says it was quite disorienting inwardly. And the future, sure. Certainly, you're looking at things more in process of manifestation as you're moving up the tree, rather than things that are kind of already in place. So, the projections and the issue of ego boundaries and the issue of boundaries of self that are coming up in these further paths definitely relate to things kind of as they are coming into being, rather than as they are fully in our awareness. Is that what you mean, Graham? Or was there something? Did you have a vision of the future? I feel like with particularly Kuf, there's some significant material related to the past as well. I mean, even the prehistoric past, the various structures in our consciousness that have influenced us as we're developing. I mean, it's the realm of the lower archetypes, the magical archetypes, that are the illusion makers of life to a large extent. Forgive me if I seem a little more low energy than usual. I'm getting over a cold. Okay, Graham says, not a vision, just a sense of what is profoundly in place, as it were. Robin says that she thinks I might have actually touched on the questions that she had when she listened to the class recordings, but here's the questions. In the Tao recording, the temple wall colors had associations of angel, lion, eagle, bull, yet in the Sheen and Resh recordings, these associations were no longer in the temple. Was it because they were used, needed at the Malkuth level only, and from there they would be established in that level for the rest of the Pathworking? So was there some other reason or no reason? No, I mean, and I did answer that in a previous one, but I'll answer it again now, which is just simply that they're a part of the symbolic, magical essence of that path, and not so much in the other ones, although they can be there if you would like them to be. They were specific representatives of kind of the energies of that path. Okay, wow, that was a long thing that just jumped in here. In my opinion, Robin would like to know, once the intent and sequencing of an ascent on the path has begun, is it better to concentrate on completing the ascent in full before going back to a previous recording? Just wondering if there might be some negative effect that would creep in if the intent of following a full sequence of an ascent were interrupted by a repeat of another path's recording. Looking to the future as I'm working with the recordings now, I'm aware that if a specific issue needs worked on later, I can come back to a specific recording and use it singly on its own to help me work out the specific issue needing to be worked on, resolved. Hope that question made sense. I think it did. At least it made sense to me. I mean, basically you're saying, do I need to finish all the paths before going back and working on previous ones? And no. Once you've worked on the path, I think that it's fair ground for you to work on it in any reason. I mean, certainly there's areas of of intent, particularly in a creative sense, in which you might want to tap into the energy of a particular path, and listening to the recording can be useful for that. Certainly, there's things within like personality conflicts that you might like to particularly work on with these lower paths, because these things are simply going to be in future recordings. They're assumed to have been taken care of. So certainly, listening to a recording even 2 or 3 times isn't necessarily sufficient to have done all the possible work related to that path. So I would say definitely if you're feeling like, oh, there's something related to the path of Shin that I really want to work on, go for it. Graham says, I found reworking earlier paths, again, very useful, actually getting into them deeper. Absolutely. I mean, I think that the first couple times that you're listening to something is something that you're exploring for the first time, and you're as much attuning yourself to it as really doing the work. And so, I mean, I'm hoping that you're listening to them 3 or 4 times in the interviewing period. But I mean, I think that myself and I think most people are noticing that there are sort of outside of the recording experiences happening in life that are being triggered by listening to the recordings in a conscientious way. And that's, of course, I think that's kind of where you're going with your question, if I'm not mistaken, Robin, is that are you worried that, because we're sort of moving forward, if you go back, you're going to have sort of multiple things swinging through your life? And certainly that's a possibility, but I think that the initial effect isn't going to be as profound as when you're first kind of entering into that new territory. Kevin says, it manifested things between Brandine and I that we had never seen before. Sure, I mean, particularly this last path with the relationship, there's going to be a lot of things that you notice as a result of it. Juan says, I certainly enjoy going back and reworking my way through many of the paths we've already studied, and agree with Graham and that many offer great benefits in repeating them. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really intending this to be like a 30-day program or something that obviously it's taking longer than that. But limited. You go through this program once and then you're kind of done. I think each one has more to offer than that. And certainly, as you're sort of building these inner psychic structures, you can even work with them without a recording and just simply explore that path energy and move around within the different layers. Yes, and Robin's bringing up the third question was, these pathways are geared toward an ascent evolution. Can they be used for a descent involution? Or are you planning to do another set to address a descent? I hadn't considered another set relating to a descent. I think that I would rather that if you're using them in that way, that you use them without a recording, or just simply use. I've got my the sounds available for the various levels, and maybe just use the one that you're moving toward in that regard. I think that the interesting thing is that the invocation that happens at the beginning kind of takes you through all of the levels from the highest down to the lowest. So that you kind of begin with the descent in a way with the structure of the invocation. Now, I think you actually asked some other questions and I'm hoping that it was actually you and not someone who's not here. But so anyway, I think I've answered those questions now. And if you have follow-ups, go ahead. But I think you actually did ask some other questions that I didn't answer in any. But I could be wrong. So does anyone have anything else that they want to discuss about the path of Kof? I think that it's definitely something that there's a lot of material that we could talk about significantly if people want to, but we can also talk about it privately outside of this scenario if you'd like to as well. I think you're saying kept the order of the path in one by one and growing in my internal transformation. when I did them in order, been given, I did them every day, at night especially, and I think if I was not keeping the order, I would not grow so fast and gradually on my path. Alex, were you saying yes, please, too? Robin says, I may have, but couldn't find them in my emails. If you have them and could dig them out, that would be great. I'm not signed into my email right now because I don't want to mess up my computer system and make it hang too much. Alex says, is there any way to solidify either the effect or the process of cuff to make it last longer? You're saying that are you talking, which part are you referring to? The part moving into Netzach or the part of the path itself? Alex says he's getting significant benefits from the path, but finds himself falling back into negative projection very easily. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a fairly classic problem with any kind of mystical experience as opposed to meditative experiences. We're going into states rather than changing stages. And stages, forgive me for getting jargony, but you know, when we enter into a state of consciousness where we feel happy, we can obviously shift into a state of consciousness where we feel sad. When we when we change a stage in our life to being a more happy kind of a person, we're elevating in a more permanent way towards a different level. And so with these programs, what we're working with is states in the preparation for and the conditioning for changing stages. So in other words, you know, we're all at the stage that we're at spiritually, which is our natural kind of state of being, and these tools are offering us stepping stones for glimpsing and moving into new territory that we can make more permanent over time. But I mean, the work is in noticing the negative projections and in continually working on it, and so that you can move into a stage in which that's not affecting you as much. But we can't just sit in the mystical Netzach state all the time because we have to do things and accomplish things in the world. So the tool is intended to help you work some of that material through, and you will have to do it over and over again. And as we move further up the tree, we're going to find even more pleasant and powerful and amazing states of consciousness that it would be nice if we could stay in all the time, but we have to work towards that stage over time. Fawn says, I have found since working the path of Kuf that I now have a tendency to see plenty of astral junk floating in and out of my space. Would you say that as a normal effect of working within that path? Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by astral junk. Are you feeling that you're just becoming more attuned to your psychic space, and so noticing stuff? Because I mean, the path of Kuf, as we're working with it, is really more about withdrawing our own projections from the universe rather than noticing a bunch of things happening. I would say that a result of regular spiritual practice in general is a larger sense of the stuff that's in our environment, and that's one of the reasons for doing regular kind of cleansing rituals. I mean, one of the best kind of cleansing rituals that you can do for yourself is to change your diet to a more raw or natural diet, and then to physically clean your space. That simple act has profound spiritual effect. Often I'm looking around here, and I could use a good house cleaning in here, but the dust and stuff that accumulates, that creates kind of astral critters and stuff. So I mean, you might want to look around at your environment and notice what it is that you're allowing to kind of pile up physically that has astral results. Looks like there's Robin says, personally felt the process take a deep effect internally on myself. Outwardly, as I mentioned, things were great. People were overly nice to me. Work was going along smoothly. Yet internally, I was disoriented and uncomfortable. Worked less with this recording than the others because of it. Yeah, and Juan says it's visual astral junk, and I mean that's just your psychic sensitivity becoming more aware of things. Astral junk. I mean, I think that you live in a major metropolitan area, Juan, and so there's lots of junk and little quality in that kind of an environment in general. So I mean, creating sacred space for yourself as much as possible is a good way of building a positive astral presence and limiting some of the negative. But I mean, sometimes when you create a positive environment, it actually draws stuff to you, that wants to kind of feed on that as well. So, Robin, your challenge with Kuf, I'd like to understand it more because I almost feel like it sounds like there was something that was troubling to you about about the matter. Because I mean, obviously, for the next several paths, there are things that are Tzaddi being sort of the exception, since it's relatively a pleasant experience. There are things that are kind of to be looked at that are a challenge, and so what do you think that you encountered in looking at the projections that would make you feel troubled in a way that makes you want to back away rather than working through it? You allowed yourself to be totally open to the whole idea. The whole idea that you project a lot of the meaning, or essentially all of the meaning that anything has to you out of yourself into the world? Or, okay, and so you felt like things were becoming meaningless as a result of that? Am I correct in intuiting that? Medusa says, I did this, changes Jason, and indeed had an incredible effect. Gym weights, exercises, changed diet, took program, changing my outlook of I'm not sure what that means there, body, and bringing myself to a higher self-esteem in general. Worked great with this path of Kuf, where you need to be in tune with self and withdraw the projections on others. I became the main attention in my life, and the be happy, joyful. I'm so grateful. Juan says, Robin, for me, Kuf felt as if it were a place of inner fears and demons, often hearing a great many voices that disoriented me. Finding out later, all the voices were my own. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the essential message of the path, Juan. Is that the things that haunt you, the things that bother you, the things that scare you, and even the things that delight you are things that you're putting out there. That in essence, everything is just lovely if you'd like it to be. You didn't like what you were perceiving about others, or? By the way, Medusa, I'm glad that you're having such wonderful experiences. I didn't mean to just jump past you, but you didn't ask a question. So, Juan says, oftentimes we do our finest work on hiding from ourselves. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, but I mean, the self is only, one component in the universe, even in the universe of consciousness. It's only just one. It's just the constellation that you're a part of, that you have accumulated your awareness around. Well, it says Quoth kind of busted hiding from himself, I guess. All right, so Robin says she's wondering if her openness might have caused her to become a bit overwhelmed with the experience of the path. I mean, certainly, it's possible if you jump into things with, both feet. Sometimes you can end up in deeper water than you're expecting. But I mean, let's talk in a couple of weeks when you've worked with Tzaddi for a little while and see if you're still feeling that way. And obviously, if you have any questions, go ahead and get in touch with me outside of the class, and I'll try and talk to you about it. But it may just be that the particular tone of that path just was a little scary for you or something. How do you feel about the sort of deeper structures within yourself, your subconscious and your unconscious, and like your id, your desires and the things, do you feel like it's like you feel comfortable looking at those things, or is that scary for you? Brendine, Robin says that she plans to come back to this recording again in between also, and Brendine says, it was also disorienting to me, voices of family guidance that no longer served me, memories that changed my vision of reality. Shift was disorienting. It was overwhelming, but very good to swim it out and have it gone, except for those that got touched with the shock I felt. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think it was Alex saying, this work isn't necessarily done. You're having experienced a sort of a satori or a realization about things doesn't necessarily mean that you're completely out of the water. But certainly, to become more conscious of that is going to change you forever. So I mean, each time you work with it, it's going to make a little bit of a change, or a big amount of a change, depending on who you are and how you face it. But the work is going to be there over time. Yes. Robin says, no fear, Willie. I'm wanting to meet and confront myself, and that she understands that pathworking is a lifetime of work. Work is a lot of, the word pathworking has the word work in it, so I guess we're not going to escape from the word work. I think it's, looking at it as work sounds kind of boring. I look at it as discovery, exploration, creation to an extent, experiencing. Yes, I just don't want you to feel that, the more we make something work, the more it seems like, oh man, that's a drag. The more that it's play, the more that it's, creation, in the sense, my daughter just had her birthday, and I gave her this little book that has a bunch of stencils of dresses and stickers, ballet stuff. And, it's a book basically for being creative. And, she just has this wonderful free play with it, and her imagination just goes wild with it. And I would like, as much as possible, for all of us working with these paths to view the work that we're doing with that same sense of play, and that same sense of wonder of how amazing can I make my experience of the universe. That's what I'd like. Why I was resisting your word work there, even though there's really nothing wrong with it per se. I just want to make sure that people are seeing this for what it is, that it is an opportunity to really just, enjoy life more. Despite the fact that occasionally we're going to have to confront things that are slightly alarming to us, but only so that we can free ourselves from those things. When you're unaware of the blockages and stuff, it's like the person who's crippled, who doesn't realize that if they just take their foot out of their cast, they can walk perfectly fine. Medusa says, the path of Kaf was the most wonderful to me in my life, and the overall results of happiness in my life. I'm transforming my life in all areas, but especially in my levels of joy and personal happiness. That is fantastic. Robin, I like the name Path Playing, but I don't know. Well, yes, and Alex says, unless you like your work, and certainly, liking one's work is very important. But I still think that the concept of work often has a slightly unsexy kind of a connotation to it. That's all I was saying. But yeah, I mean, certainly I enjoy what I do, so I don't consider it work. So Robin says that's how I went/go into them all. This one was just a little heavy on my end this time. I think it is a bit of a heavy one, and I think I actually gave that warning. Tzaddi less so, but watch everyone else thinks that Tzaddi is very disturbing. I mean, I don't think that you could. It's too. It's pleasant. I mean, so let's move on to discussing Tzaddi here. Juan says, easy enough for me, plenty of characters from myths in my worlds thus far, making the travels rather entertaining. Yeah, absolutely. Kevin says, I am finding a greater consciousness of how I deal with others around me, and a new manifesting of what my true feelings are and a truth of self. I'm now working harder on improving myself and making a new me every day. That's a beautiful, you guys are really having some beautiful statements today. I like what I'm hearing. I'm looking forward to us getting to the path of Aleph and seeing where you guys are all at. We're gonna be the Tzaddikim by the end of this. All right, so let's talk about the path of Tzaddi. Alex asked if we project negative attitudes onto the word work, then sticks his tongue out with a little symbol. Yes. Okay, so the path of Tzaddi. That is. Now this is a funny one, and it was brought up by a Thalamic person who I don't think is here today. Last time, because this is something that in Aleister Crowley's writings, over time he shifted due to something that was in the Book of the Law that he received. He shifted these two paths and put the Emperor here and Tzaddi at the top of the tree. And there isn't that much in my personal experience that supports that change. Alex says the star is not Tzaddi because AC says so, apparently. Yeah. So now the interesting thing is some people will then leave the star where it is on the thing and just put hay at the bottom of the tree of life, and some people will switch them completely. Anyway, we're not going to get into a discussion of that because we're just going to deal with Tzaddi as the star for now. And so this is Crowley's image, and this is actually, I think, one of my favorite of the Crowley cards. I'm not getting a good image of it here, but there's a woman who's holding a cup here, and she's pouring sort of like liquid crystals, and she's pouring more over here. There's this interesting sort of planetoid thing here, and then in the background is this seven-pointed star that's got these interesting shapes coming out of it, and it's just sort of the universe either coming into being or dissolving through this like very beautiful, mystical-looking space. I really like this card quite a lot. The Rider-Waite version, and this is one of the few Rider-Waite ones that very closely resembles the way that the traditional Golden Dawn depiction is. She is the same sort of person. There's a few slight differences. I don't think Crowley has a representation of the ibis bird. He's got some butterflies instead. but there's a little bird in the background here on a tree, I should have brought my cards, which are a little bit well, I guess the Golden Dawn one from the Cicero's has this, and I'll show it to you in a minute. But the tree is usually the tree of life, or a planetary tree anyway. And so she's pouring one cup on the ground and one cup in the water, and she's got 1 foot in the ground and 1 foot in the water, and that's a recurring theme in a lot of these. Producer saying that she has this card set and that she colored them. So the set that you had was actually the Boda card set, which is very similar to these. They just frankly, they're slightly better drawn, I think, the Boda ones. But I mean, obviously, they have the advantage of having something to model it upon. So that's the Rider-Waite star, and this is the Cicero's version of getting a lot of glare for some reason, of this star. And again, you see that the 2 jugs of water or liquid, you can't really see it, but that's an ibis bird, and then over here is a little tree of life. What is depicted in that card is a sort of psychic manifestation of things, a flow. The interpretation that I usually give to that card is one of expansion, of undulatory expansion of your consciousness. What's happening in the path is you're moving from Yesod to Netzach. I should do it this way since you guys are. And Yesod is that dreamy trance state, and Netzach is that blissful. We've been to Netzach with the previous one, right? And so what's happening is a loosening of the boundaries of self and not self. In Kuf, we are noticing the fact that we've made these artificial boundaries, and we're kind of, getting rid of some of the projections that happen. With Tzaddi, we're actually loosening our sense of, we're moving into something like the oceanic state that is described by psychologists as a primordial, mystical-ish kind of state. Graham creative imagination. Certainly, the free flow of creative imagination is something that is definitely Tzaddi oriented. So the structure of it is similar to the Resh one that we did before, in that you will begin in Malkut and then sort of just raise your energy up to the Yesod temple, and from there begin the pathworking. And next time, you're actually going to raise your energy. We'll discuss this in the next class, but you're going to raise your energy all the way up to the Hod temple and go to Netzach from there. So it's even further, moving up the tree before we even get started on our work. And so from now on, we're going to begin in Malkut, but immediately move up the tree to begin our work from a higher place. And so basically, the way that these path workings work is that you have a kind of a target sephira, which is in this case the Netzach, and you do all the paths that lead there in a row. So we did Kuf, now we're doing Tzaddi, and then we'll do Pei. And then basically we'll have finished the different ways in which you can approach Netzach, and we'll start to approach Tiferet. And Tiferet is approached through some pretty interesting territory, and I'm not going to spend too much time discussing that right now, but basically we're in the second of 3 paths that move into Netzach. And so each one, again, as with Hod, each one is going to bring you a different kind of perspective. And in this one, my feeling, I don't know how many people have actually started using this, but my feeling is that this is almost an easier approach, and I think largely because of the fact that we're coming from, we're coming from the sort of like already in the dreamy, relaxed state, so we just sort of flow into Netzach rather than um, the coming from Malkut, in which we have to kind of work through some stuff. Now there are some issues related to the body that come up in the path of Tzaddi. It's simply because the construct, my body, is a part of the ego constructs that you're loosening and letting go of to an extent as you're moving upward. You know, what we call our body is just an accumulation of the four elements or the many elements of physical sciences that we're temporarily using as our vehicle in the material plane. But that's not all of our consciousness by a long shot. And so, in moving up the tree, one of the things that we're working with right now is kind of loosening our sense of the body being me. It's just a component of our awareness. And in fact, you can move your awareness into other things. You can be a tree, or you can be a table. You can move your awareness into any number of things, and more or less fully experience yourself as that thing. So your consciousness really, your body is just the instrument that you're using right now. And so part of this path is letting go of that temporarily and moving into bliss without the body feeling like it's in danger. So I mean, if a part of your body were to fall off, it'd still be okay because it's not really you. Somebody just dropped away. I wonder who that was. Grandusa says, Jason sent a Tree of Life picture with the path on your email and cell phone. If you can print it, we can see it. Not sure what that statement means. But on my website, there's a number of different trees that show this path. And those of you who are in my course are, I think pretty much everyone's gotten to the point where we've been constructing the trees, and you've seen the paths on the Tree of Life there as well. So questions about the path of Tzaddi? Now, there are similarities between Tzaddi and Kof in some ways because, again, they're headed in the same direction. And there are a few similarities between Pei and the other ones as well. It's a gradual stepping up of that which we are letting go of along the path of return to the divine monad. Now, the thing is that okay, Brindusa, I will check that. Like I said, I can't do that right now because I don't want to mess up the broadcast here. The thing we are doing, when we reach the monad in this class, it doesn't mean that we're going to just dwell in the monad from now on. Obviously, that wouldn't necessarily even be desirable, at least from the perspective of being an incarnated being that has things to accomplish in the physical world. But what we're hoping to gain as we move upward is a perspective that allows us to be more centered, more free, and more open to the universe and to the people around us and to the experience of things, and realize that we're all ultimately in this together and that we're all the same thing and we're all working in the same direction. Even when we believe ourselves to be opposed to one another, there's still a sameness to what we're actually trying to accomplish. I got into a discussion yesterday. Please feel free to ask questions at any time. I got into a discussion with a woman yesterday. We were discussing the nature of evil. And I said, well, I mean, I think evil is more about direction than it is about essence. Um, I think that essential evil isn't something that could possibly exist. It's just something that that we choose a direction and we become more and more involved in that direction and become more and more negative. And she said, no, evil is an essence. It's absolutely, and there's true evil in the universe. And I said, well, I'm not questioning whether there's true evil in the universe. I'm simply saying that it can't be permanent, so it can't be an essence. And she said, well, no, I don't agree. And I said, well, so are you saying that there are some things in the universe that could never be redeemed, that could never be brought back into alignment with the divine at all? And she said, no, of course not. Everything can be redeemed. And so I said, well, then I don't think we're actually having a conflict with one another. You're just expressing it in a different way. So, we are all ultimately on the same team, no matter what. So Juan's got a question here. I could not get past the star part the first few times attempted. After putting it aside, I tried to travel up that path once more and found myself having visions of a circus. There were balloons in each color of the Sephiroth and clowns dancing and juggling and carnival-like music in the background. And then awakened body. LOL. Which path are you talking about? Robin says, thought everything is neutral. It's one's perception of whether some is perceived as evil or not. Yeah, I mean, evil and good are just two descriptive words. See, the question also, it's a tough one to even discuss because there are different things wanted by different people. Ultimately, it's one thing, but it's described from different perspectives, and so it makes it rather difficult to discuss. But ultimately, is the universe good or pure? No, nor is it impure. It just simply is, right? But Robin, you're right. There is a duality to things in their expression, and just simply in the fact that as we move beyond one thing, we have two things, and so those things are constantly either coming together or moving apart. So Juan, I would recommend working with it again, and hopefully you having a more. If that experience seems good to you, then it's fine. It's not really what I would hope for you, but it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with that per se. It seems more like a comic dream about the silliness of the universe on some level. Roger asked you a good question. Define universe. Sure. Are we talking just about the physical universe, or are we talking about the universe extending, into infinite metaphysical territory? And I think that, when I think of universe, I think of what it basically is saying. Oneness in expression. So, in expression, it's no longer pure. When we talk about the monad, when we talk about singularity, when we talk about infinite oneness that encompasses all things in a pure, undefined state, you can say that's sacred or beautiful, but that doesn't actually. That's not something that we have in our day-to-day experience. The all, yeah, the all as a concept is what I'm talking about. The monad, the singularity. But in the Qabalah, the all immediately expresses itself in polarity. In its essence, it's one thing, but then it becomes two. In order to be anything, you can't. the metaphysical philosophers for thousands of years have been sort of ruminating over this issue, because ultimately a unitary being must have no qualities whatsoever, because if it has a quality, then that's something that can distinguish it from something else, and then it can't be one. So there's there's no real way of describing the monad, of describing the infinite singularity. There's no way to describe it. It can have no qualities. It can't exist in a space. It can't, it's simply the eternal unification of all of the disparate things that make it up in its expression. Once it's described, it loses its ability to be the one. Yeah. The whole universe in a grain of sand. Right. So, but we're not worrying about that right now. Right now, what we're worrying about is simply the ability to enjoy all things as much as possible, and to see in them something that is beautiful and wonderful. That's the place where we are right now, moving into a state of bliss, to a state of connection with all things, in which we see them as beautiful expressions of our own inner nature. Roger says, "What's so great about bliss?" I mean, it's not something that one can have all the time. Certainly, it's just simply a state along the path. It can be a trap. I mean, if you listen to the recording, Roger, the Netzach isn't all good. I mean, it certainly it limits you in some ways, but it's just simply where you move your consciousness through. But here's the thing about bliss. It's not bliss if there are things that can interrupt it. If you are experiencing bliss, then pain is beautiful. Ugliness is beautiful. All of the things that you define with rules and limitations that you don't like are also as wonderful as the things that you usually do like, and that's kind of what makes it bliss. But you can't just sit on it. It's actually one of the dangers of the mystic, is that you just try and actually something that can become just an addiction like anything else. There's a small moth flying around in the room here. So, Alex says he looks forward to doing the meditation. There's a lot of agreements that I'm not just going to read through them all. Everyone's saying, it's true, indeed, yes. So anyway, Juan says, what are some suggestions you can make so that traveling to Tzaddi a bit easier? Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think about how the meditation is structured and how you might have ended up in a fun house rather than. I guess there's a sort of a dance to it in the way that it's described in the recording, and that's of course not the only way that you can approach it. You can simply just open yourself up to expanding into the stars. Now, the New Hermetics practice, expanding your consciousness, is actually the path of Tzaddi. So you know that technology can certainly be incorporated here, which is just simply to increase what you encompass, what your consciousness is. Reduces says to expand like a dance. Yeah, I mean that's the way that it's approached in the recording. So, but you can do it any number of ways. And I'm wondering if the reason why you got caught up in kind of a circus funhouse is because there's a sort of whirling quality to it, and maybe it just sort of started feeling like a dream, like a crazy carnival dream or something like that. Certainly. I mean, there's no. I mean, that's interesting because, like, in a way, the carnival as a concept relates to what I was talking about with Roger a little bit a moment ago, which is that because the carnival has everything that is nice in the world, but in kind of like a creepy way. There's delicious food, but it's all that sort of fried food with sugar on top of it. There's beautiful ladies, but they're all sort of painted, caricatures, and often have beards. There's just everything is there in an interesting and exciting form, but it's kind of weird and crazy. And so that can be blissful. At least it can be ecstatic, but it ultimately can be sort of a trap, a limitation. So I feel like there is a Netzach vision in there somewhere for you. So I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, but this path should be probably the easiest one for the next few weeks. Certainly, it's just more about a blissful experience of things rather than a challenge. So hopefully you guys will have that experience. All right. My pleasure, everybody. Robin, if you figure out what those questions were, go ahead and ask me again. And if So we will be meeting again in 2 weeks, I believe. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And Roger, thank you again for those magazines. I appreciate that a lot. I hope that you feel better. I'm sending you healing energy. Thinking about you every day. Juan, talk to me about Roger, because I want you to put him in your healing matrix, because it's on Friday too, okay? Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Blessings.